palm trees. But believe it or not, those palm trees are standing in tubs on top of the public lavatories in front of the town hall of Batley. We're right in the market square. And we've decided to come to Batley, not because there's anything specially bad or specially hard or even hard hit about Batley itself. It's right in the very heart of the wool textile area of the industrial West Riding. That's one reason. But also, it's one of these areas that have special problems of their own, and is typical of a lot of the north of England. It isn't even a special development area like Merseyside and the northeast, which the government has singled out for special development grants. It's a place that really has to look after itself. It's described officially as a grey area, and peculiarly appropriate the word is too. Well now, Batley is really rather a marvellous town. And what is it really like? It's like much of the industrial north, littered with untidy industry, in a hill and valley setting that must once have been beautiful, like much of the north. If you drive through Batley on the main Bradford-Dewsbury road, you might think it just straggled on without much form. You'd be right. But in the market square, in front of the town hall, you'd begin to recognize its character, because Batley has a very strong sense of identity. Not that Batley is physically attractive. A few new shops don't make a new town. Batley's one main shopping street is no different from 100 others in small northern towns. The co-op, one or two multiple stores, and the small shopkeeper as the backbone. Its houses, new, old, good, bad, indifferent, they sprawl on the hillsides. They have very little sense of form. Behind the shops, derelict open spaces are crying out to be developed in some useful way. But of course, a town isn't just the sum total of all the buildings in it. What gives Batley its personality is its people. And it's with the waste of people, the loss of their potential contribution to the country, that I want to deal in this programme. In the first programme, I pointed out that material waste in the industrial north means dereliction, decay, it means pit heaps, empty mills, and substandard housing. But equally important is this other kind of waste, the waste of people. To those who throng Batley Market on a Friday, unemployment between the wars is now just history. To those who experienced it, bitter history. The years since the Second World War have been comparatively good. But Batley people, like the rest of the north, suffer higher unemployment and earn a little less than if they lived in the south or the Midlands. But of course, there are other forms of waste. Education. Once more, the north is underprivileged. Generally, the buildings are older and the teachers are fewer than elsewhere. The children, of course, are no less intelligent or less able than anywhere else. In fact, in the West Riding, a higher proportion of children with an IQ of more than 130 are admitted to grammar schools than in the rest of the country. But a much smaller proportion get to the university. They grow up in a society where the pressure is to leave school at the earliest possible age, 15, and earn a wage. More than 60% do so. But what happens after school? A youth employment officer.
About 40% of the boys leave Batley to work. They remain in Batley to live, of course, and don't travel very far for other opportunities. They travel into Spen Valley, where there's a variety of industry, a terrific variety of it.
Well, what sort of thing will they leave Batley to go to?
Engineering, mainly, the boys. They look for the apprenticeships in engineering in Spen Valley. Girls, particularly those with a high percentage, always of girls who look for clerical work, will go into the neighbouring county boroughs, particularly Leeds, working for banks, insurance companies and so on. We have the carpet industry locally, which recruits very well for textiles, but there is a difference between the staple trade of rags, if you like, in Batley and the carpet industry.
Well, you see, the kind of portrait you're painting is in fact a rather depressing one at the moment. Because one's tending to say, if you want something slightly better on the surface than you've had before, you tend to travel elsewhere to get it.
Yes.
Or you go and get training somewhere else. But the centre of Batley is this kind of shrinking and declining rag trade.
Yes, yes.
Is that right?
I would say that's a fair comment. Yes, yes. I think increasingly during the years ahead, we'll possibly be seeing a higher percentage still not working within the boundaries of the borough. I think this is to be expected. When I came into the area in 1954, we had great difficulty in persuading young people to leave the borough for better opportunities, to step over the boundary in Heckman-Wyke, which one can hardly see. There's scarcely any difference. You never know when you're leaving one and entering the other. But to them, it was almost a journey into a foreign country, but this no longer applies.
So would you expect most of the boys here, and they've been drifting around while we've been talking, would you expect most of these boys to leave Batley?
Leave Batley Borough to work? Most of them, yes.
Those who stay may end up in rags, literally, because Batley is the historic centre of rags, shoddy and mungo, all lowly but very important branches of the declining textile industry. With a characteristic northern flair, Batley turns the fibres from old clothes and pieces of material into new, cheap cloth that finds its way into many suits and blankets. In a way, it's a reflection of northern character. The North never wastes anything of its own free will. Thus, Batley loses working population over the years, its main industry slowly dwindling. There are usually 2 to 3% out of work. Batley is not as hard hit as the northeast, for example. But Batley is saved by its geographical position, its nearness to Leeds, to Bradford, and to Wakefield. Of course, rags aren't the only industry. The main single source of expanding new employment, principally for women, is biscuit making. Tons of biscuits a week. This means a demand for women workers, including housewives who work part-time in one of the few new industrial buildings. These buildings were built long ago in the confident Victorian belief that staple industries like textiles would endure forever. Thus, built to last, the solid mills survive, and given enterprise, there's plenty of life in them yet. Space for the new industries that Batley, like the North generally, badly needs. They get on with their work, disregarding other forms of waste that affect the area. Health, for example. If people in the north of England are off work through ill health, there are fewer doctors in relation to the population than in other parts of the country. The North has a disproportionately high number of the country's largest medical practices, those with more than 3,000 patients each. With dentists, the position is even worse. 6,000 patients per dentist. If you've got toothache, go south, young man. So perhaps, not surprisingly, Batley Town Council's coat of arms concerns itself principally with work. Let industry flourish. Well, lots of people think that's just what it is not doing, that in fact it's in decline. But it's not in decline, it's really in the midst of change. Well, that coat of arms is in the council chamber of the town of Batley, the place from which the fortunes of more than 40,000 people are in part governed, but only in part, because there's lots of things that a town council has no control over whatsoever.
Ladies and gentlemen, His Worship Islam.
Ladies and gentlemen. Staff Clerk, are there apologies for absence, please?
I've received apologies, Mr. Mayor, from Alderman Fox, who's away on holiday, and also from Councillor Mrs. Sheldon, who you'll all be pleased to hear is making satisfactory progress after her operation.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is my misfortune to open the meeting on a note of sadness when I refer to the death.
The council is like many other councils throughout the land, a mixture of local people soldiering on with a form of government which, while it's got many strengths, is patently out of date. In some places, it can be narrow-minded and inward-looking. But within the confines of what a council can do, Batley does its best. Until a Royal Commission on Local Government produces practical plans to get towns like Batley to amalgamate with neighbouring places into sizable units that can be more properly managed, the town is probably as well run as any, by the 32 councillors and aldermen, the railway and hospital workers, the businessmen, the retired schoolmasters, and so on. The council runs its business, like any other business does, on the income it can gather. From houses like these at Upper Batley, and from industrial premises too, the council draws in something like £500,000 a year. Now, with low housing rates, it pays the council and Batley to keep the mills occupied, if it can. And this is at the heart of Batley's problem.
Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, I beg to move that the minutes of the Housing Committee of the 19th instance be confirmed. 19th of September.
Who second that, please?
Mr. Mayor, in connection with minute number 154, I have to read the following report of the Borough Engineer.
As is so often the case in the industrial north, housing was, and still is, one of Batley's biggest problems. No fewer than 2 out of every 3 houses were found in a survey a few years ago to be below standard. Well, many have been demolished, but clearing slums leaves great areas of land that need bringing to life again. The council has built 3,000 houses since the war, a very creditable number, even if they aren't always just where some people want to live, like near the town centre. And Batley, of course, has its own town centre development plan. Again, it's like 1,000 other places, and like those places, it's usually based on far too narrow a community, too small a dimension. What Batley has got, so far at any rate, though there's bigger things in the pipeline, is a rather motley collection of new shops in one unenterprising row. True, the supermarket society is there, but not everybody wants to join that.
Those in favour of the minutes?
Batley Town Council votes, one cannot help feeling, change the tenor of life only very little.
Those against?
Even the straightforward jobs are expensive to a small town. A street cleaning machine, for example, costs over £500 a year in depreciation, and it can wear out £10 worth of brushes in a week.
I trust this report, in accordance with the requirements of Standing Order number 7 with respect to contracts, will enable the council to support the resolution of the Housing Committee.
Any questions?
While local councillors discuss the details of local development, Batley's plight forces you to ask